People who have faith in the shroud as the burial cloth of Christ, but don't understand or don't know the science, when they get to know it and learn it, have more respect for the cloth because of that. Science truly followed and faith well followed blend to form the truth, and the truth is on that cloth.
One possibility, of course, is that we have some unknown man who was scourged, crucified, stabbed with a lance, crowned with thorns, who spent less than 3 days within his burial shroud and bears his image in such a way that it cannot be recreated with all the technology that exists today. Or perhaps, just perhaps, it may be Jesus the Christ.
This is your salvation. This is love in action.
The St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, in partnership with Patchwork Heart Ministry and Fiat Ministry Network, present a podcast for divorced and separated Catholics.
Hello and welcome to a podcast from the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. This is Ann DeSantis, Executive Director, joined by our Board President, Mickey Kelly. Mickey, welcome back again.
Hi, Ann. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to be here because this is our 10 tips for healing for adult children of divorce. It's been a great series so far. We're on episode number 7. And on this episode, we're going to talk about considering therapy if needed, counseling, therapy, whatever it would be that would help you to find healing. And that's sometimes for some people who are going through rough times with many different circumstances, finding a therapist, a good therapist, is really a necessary thing because we can't do it alone. And sometimes we can pray, we can go to our friends, we can go to our Catholic community to find some prayer healing. Sometimes people even receive like charismatic prayer or pray novenas, but still they find that something is lacking. And the direction that maybe they're going in is that maybe the prayer is leading them to find a good counselor, a good therapist. So let me just start out with you, Mickey. Like, what would be your opinion on that topic?
Well, Ann, honestly, I think that it needs to be people that, there is the help that people need to seek, there are some things they can't do. I think there's the expression, you can't do certain things on your own. And I think one of the things when we have like mental scars, mental hurts or what have you, those things take time to heal. It's one thing, like you had a scrape, you have a cut, you had a injured joint, broken arm, fracture, whatever the case is, those things heal. But for mental illnesses from a trauma or whatever, those things take longer than physical wounds to heal. And one of the things that many people need to do is, some people lack this vital source, is to seek counseling. And we have counselors that deal with people that, have learning disabilities or have ADHD or, whatever the case is. We have counselors that deal with people that have depression, people with anxiety issues, schizophrenia, even like those that probably don't know how to cope properly with their emotions, when they're stressed or sad, things like that. Because honestly, I think that's something that's been overlooked. And people really need to understand that this is something that, mental illness cannot be ignored. And I think we're kind of seeing that unfold today. It seemed, and especially now, like I am concerned about the generation coming up now with the Generation Zoomers, Generation Z, what I'm referring to. Even YZ, even millennials too. Like I think it's been affecting them quite a bit lately. Even before the pandemic and during the pandemic as well. And I noticed that most of the time they're not building these amazing social connections in person, yet they're doing it on a platform that doesn't really fill there's a void that's being developed, that it's like really harming their mental well-being. Now, also with the family thing, let's face it, there's been a lot of broken homes, over half a century, even longer. And one way or another, there have been children have been, had harm inflicted on them, seeing how arguments turn sometimes into physical confrontations. And of course, the children, they lash out at school and things. And there's going to come a time that they need to see someone that can help them to heal from their past and to use their stories to help others to avoid, these repercussions as well.
Yeah, such wisdom. And the wisdom that you shared, I think, in terms of the awareness of mental illness and the need for people to seek therapy, goes outside of the realm of just the adult child of divorce who's our audience on this evening. It's just something that's very out there, right? It's very something that we see every day in the news, that there is a need out there for us to recognize that just like physical illness, any type of mental, emotional, psychological illness is also a healing of the body and the mind, right? So it's important for us to be able to see, recognize, and agree with the fact that this is a real thing. Now, I did go online and just a simple Google search, it talks about the difference between a counselor and a therapist. And in the simple Google search, it says that counselors tend to offer short-term care, while therapists tend to offer long-term care. Therapists can be more past-focused and counselors more future-focused. Counselors often have a set number of sessions, and therapists often work on an ongoing basis. Therapists are more likely to treat mental health conditions. And then another one, which talks about the difference between psychologists and therapists, is that psychologists can do research, which is a very important contribution academically and clinically to the profession. A therapist is a broader umbrella term for professionals who are trained and often licensed to provide a variety of treatments and rehabilitation for people. Again, these are just simple Google searches, and if you key it in, you're going to see the same thing. But it's good to know those definitions of like the tiers of different kinds of help that we need. Sometimes people who are going through a difficult life circumstance, they may not have, like, in quotes, mental or psychological illness per se, because all of us go through challenging times, and sometimes we do need the help of someone else to listen, to care, and to guide. And so that, I think, is just an important thing for us to understand. Now, of course, there are people who it is something that is a diagnosed, now I'm going to use the word disorder. I know that in the world of psychology, they're kind of going away from that word. They're not really using, they're trying not to use that word anymore as if there's something wrong with a person, because we all have something that's not quite right. Isn't that true? But not so much maybe a disorder, but something that needs to be addressed about that person's personality or their thoughts, the thought patterns, and so that they can go in a more positive direction in their lives. So I just wanted to make a note of that. Now, I have to say also, since we're at the beginning of this podcast, is that neither Mickey or I are licensed clinical social workers or counselors. Mickey has a background. He's the president of our board. He also has a background in writing and in communications and a degree, I believe, and you can tell me exactly what that degree is when it's your turn again. I believe it's in communications.
That's correct.
Good. Got it right. My background is not in counseling or therapy, but it is I have the master's in theology, Catholic theology. And I have a degree in teaching as well. That's a side note. But I mean, the point of it is, I guess, is that what we're trying to do is to educate you, our listeners, so that you can make good decisions. But we just want to make it clear that neither of us are counselors or psychologists. Now, I do want to make a note, if I could, at the beginning of the podcast as well, to say that on our helpful resource page, it's actually called Outside Resources at nonnatus.org, is that we do have a list of a few, not a lot, but a few people that we trust that we can say are good contacts for you who are listening to find a good therapist. Because we are a Catholic nonprofit 501c3, the people that we're recommending on our site are Catholic therapists. They're not going to be your secular, regular therapists that you would find in a network or something for your health insurance company. Now, I want to address that too, and maybe we could talk about that together, Mickey, is that we understand for those listening that, it's not always a cheap thing, something that's inexpensive to go and find a counselor. And some of the private counseling we know can be pricey, especially if you do want to get someone who's, a Christian counselor or something like that. I'm not going to talk about, or we're not going to talk about the prices for the counselors that we're recommending, because I'm sure that they have different options or sliding scales. Maybe it could be just as cost effective for you just to go through them as it would your insurance company with some counselor that could be recommended there. But I think the most important thing is that you try to find the right kind of help. There are some people in our, who are in Catholic ministry, and even many authors and speakers and podcasters who will say, and I know I've heard this before, you shouldn't go to anyone except a Catholic therapist or a Christian therapist. On this podcast, we're not going to get into any type of telling people what to do in that respect. Only for this one reason and this one reason only, and that's because we know that everyone's situation is different, meaning some of you might have health insurance that covers certain types of counseling. You're going to have to be the judge, obviously, of what direction you want to go in that respect. All I would say is at least give it a try to find out if you can get affordable Catholic or / Christian therapy or counseling with someone. That's probably the most important thing. Give it a try, find out what's available, and then from there, you can go and find the right person for you. Of course, as a Catholic nonprofit, yes, we would recommend Catholic counseling. We think that would be a wonderful thing because of this one reason, and that is because it's that lens that we're looking at. The lens that we're seeing is through the eyes of the church. It's very helpful. Now, you can have an authentic Catholic person who's offering general counseling, who understands the teachings of the church, who respects the teachings of the church. And that is going to be definitely possible for you to find that. But that's something that might take some work. So let me just hand it over to you, Mickey, just to talk about that, because I think the most important thing is finding help and the right kind of help. And there is going to be research involved. I'm sure you'll agree with that.
Yes, and I actually concur. I think the most important step when seeking counseling is that we have to make sure that we have, well, I think it's easier said than done with this. We have to be sure that we are doing our homework here. The reason I say that is because we have to understand that we must be willing to, we do need to find someone that is in line with the church teachings. We do need someone that's not going to make us compromise. But I think what's very important in the midst of all of this is there are counselors who will not make us compromise our teachings. And this is the same thing goes for, like, seeking a medical doctor as well. What I believe is the key step is we have to find the right counselor that is willing to work with us. And let's be clear. Let's be clear. There are doctors that do take insurance, and there are those that don't take it. And I think what's very important is, regardless, and we do need to find the right doctor, counselor, whoever it is, that's willing to work with us in order to solve the problems that are holding us, that are like plaguing our mental illnesses.
Well said. Thank you. The wisdom that we're sharing with all of you is what we've learned, what I've learned, not only as a human being, right? That's first and foremost. But what I've also learned as being the executive director for this nonprofit over the last over 5 years, and interacting with people, talking to people, getting to know people's stories, getting emails and calls from different therapists who want to, in quotes, advertise our services on our website. And this happens to me on a weekly basis. I mean, that people are reaching out. So it's kind of the wisdom that I've learned. I want to let all of you know too that our website, excuse me, on our website under the outside resources, we only have 3 therapists that we're recommending. Okay, 3 counselors that we're recommending. And I'm going to tell you why. And that's because everyone who comes to us that asks to be, to have that kind of that advertising on our website goes through our board. I mean, it's not just, me making a single decision as executive director, is that we take it to the board, or at the very least, if we know right away, if it's not a good match, then we don't work with them. We just don't work with them. So please do go to that nonnatus.org outside resources and see what's there. Mickey, let's talk about your own personal experience, if you could, because I think both of us, if I'm correctly, we've gone through counseling and it's helped.
Yes, and actually, it's funny you mentioned that, but most of it had to do because I was treated for ADHD, ADD, or something around those realms when I was 9 years old. Like, there would be times that I was kind of hyper. I was, lashing out in school. Grades weren't as good. But I felt like when I look back at the whole thing, I just felt like I didn't really find like the actual help that I need. And, the school actually, they persisted that there was something wrong with me. Even to the point where I was like taking Ritalin, Concerta. Of course, now they're saying that Ritalin has been kind of bad too. I mean, thankfully, I haven't been like super addicted to it. So that's always a good thing. I was treated for that. And then there have been times like I went to counseling quite a few times, just to talk about some things. Because I mean, when I looked at it, I was just like a sensitive person, sensitive human being over sometimes things that I can control, things that I cannot control. And to their credit, they do give me some friendly advice, but I also felt like when I was going from like 2nd grade to 5th grade, I just felt like I was bouncing around different psychiatrists. I felt like I wasn't really getting any results, so to speak. And honestly, it's like one thing, like the school, it notices that there's a problem, but it's also another thing too that, you want someone that's willing to work with you and not treat you like you're some experiment or something, for their own gain.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for sharing your experience, because I know the experience that you just shared wasn't just related, and it sounded like it was more, as you referred to, with the ADHD. So you're sharing kind of your whole person story. So we do appreciate that. And I'll just share a little bit of with myself. I mean, Mickey and I have talked to you, all of you on this podcast before, that we're both adult children of divorce. And now I've shared before that when my parents divorced, it was the early, not even the mid, but the early 1970s. And, things were kind of different back then in terms of what was available for families, and how much, how much did they promote getting therapy and counseling? I really don't think that they promoted it quite as much, especially if it was just for something that was like family related and not like a true, like, as what they referred to before as a disorder or something like that, So for me, it wasn't, they weren't recognizing anything in the classroom that seemed all that wrong. So they didn't, no one really said, hey, she might need some therapy. So I really didn't get any therapy at all until I got to be like after high school. And I didn't even really know at the time that therapy that I was getting had to do with being an adult child of divorce, because back then, where it was like the mid 1980s, once again, I mean, I think there was an awareness of the need for counseling and therapy, but not nearly what it is today. So I don't think I really knew at all at that time, and even at other specific times of my life where I went through counseling. Like I went through it in my early 20s, and then again in my late 20s. And then I think I picked it up again maybe when I was in my I know I did when I was in my mid 40s. And, and anytime when I feel that, I need to talk to someone on a level that's not just like talking to a friend or even to my husband about what's new with me or something like that, or what's going on, because there's a skill that's involved with a therapist, a listening skill, an understanding. And so I just think it's like a life skill or something that we all need at key times in our lives, whether we're adult children divorced or affected by something else, divorce or whatever it is. I just think it's a very helpful thing that we can do for ourselves. I am going to mention, if I could, and Mickey, you can probably talk a little bit about the one person that I'm going to mention. One of the people on our website is Heather Makowitz. She's a Catholic social worker and a certified spiritual director located in the Philadelphia area. And if you go to our website, there's a link to learn more. So talk a little bit about Heather, because I know you know her well, Mickey.
Well, let me just say this. Heather is a breath of fresh air, for the greater Philly area. And she's also involved with a ministry called Peak Encounters. If anyone's interested in learning more about them, please visit peakencounter.org. They're headquartered in the Malvern area. In fact, also the namesake of the ministry is also the namesake of Heather Makowitz's book, in which she draws 31 inspirations from 31 young adults. And I find it like so super fascinating that this remarkable person, she does spiritual directing, and the focus is to connect with God through nature. And honestly, I think this is something that we desperately need in this time and age. In fact, there has been some saints that relied on nature. I mean, you look at St. John Paul II, he's a prime example. Some of his retreats with married couples, even those that were in a courtship or engagement, they would connect through nature with hiking retreats or skiing retreats, whatever the case is, like whatever involves the mountains. And she's also a spiritual director, and she has done incredible work. In fact, she gave me some great things to ponder about when she was reflecting on some things. I highly encourage anyone that likes to be outdoors, to nature or anything, to please check them out. And most importantly, if you're looking for someone that can help you with spiritual direction, Heather Mackwis is one of the most amazing human beings you like to speak to. And she has a really incredible story about her faith, especially with one of her special needs sons, named Nate.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And I want to make a shout out to Heather. Maybe she's even listening to this podcast right now. I'm going to mention three others, two more on our website, and then there's another person I'd also like to recommend. Michael Lanahan is a Catholic therapist within the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. He's a licensed professional counselor and a Catholic clinical consultants. He is through the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, and his information is on our website at nonnatus.org on our outside resources page. So you can check that out. Another one I'd like to mention is called Christian Comfort Counseling. And they are located not in our area, but they are in Texas. But I believe that she does online counseling with people throughout the United States. Her name is Dana Nygaard, LPC. She offers authentic Catholic counseling, and it's Catholic-centered counseling. So if you go to her website, it's ChristianComfortCounseling.com, and the information and the direct link also again is on our website. The only other person I'd like to mention is our beloved board member. Her name is Colleen Bridget Fitzpatrick. She's in the South Jersey area, in Haddonfield, New Jersey. I believe that Colleen does mostly in-person appointments. I think that there may be some opportunities for online, but I'm not sure if that goes beyond New Jersey. But I want to mention it to all of you because we've known Colleen for quite a while. And the name of her practice is called Instrumental Change LLC. And the website itself is instrumentalchangellc.com. And, Colleen, what she provides, her mission is to provide clients with a better understanding of themselves in order to improve their life and relationships. So definitely check that out too. I mean, we've known Colleen for quite a while. For those who are listening to this podcast, and if you do happen to live in South Jersey, we are doing, or Colleen is doing, I should say, a brand new in-person monthly support group at her office. There will be information on our website coming soon, or it's already there. Simply go to nonnatus.org under For the Divorce. Underneath that, you will see a page about this special event, and it is for Catholics affected by divorce. Now, it wouldn't be for adult children of divorce. It would be people affected by divorce, separation, and or annulment. So great resources there. Mickey, any other words that you'd like to say in terms of what do you think is the biggest benefit to going through therapy or counseling?
I would say my best advice for anyone that's going to go, to counseling is lay everything out. Lay out everything. Tell them everything, and just don't be afraid to show emotion, especially if there's been something that has been hurting you. I think one of the most important steps in any counseling sections is that you have to acknowledge that it happened. But the end game is you must move on from it. For some people, it may take a while. Others, it may take shorter than others. But just do not be afraid to lay out everything and tell everything. And don't be afraid to ask the right questions. But at the same time, don't be afraid to give the right answers.
Yeah, that's really, really important. And healing is always a process, isn't it? I mean, it's not something that happens overnight. There are some people that almost seem unaffected by a divorce in their family. And you know, part of it that is personality, let's face it. I mean, some people just take things a lot more lightly than others. Some people take things a little more to heart. A simple Google search that I just did for some basic ideas and ways for healing for adult children of divorce are as follows: is that realize that healing doesn't mean a complete removal of suffering. To be unafraid to confront the past with Christ's help, to give voice to your wounds and grieve, and to see the interconnectedness of wounds and allow the Holy Spirit to lead, and to have hope and draw good from your wounds. And that's from Life Giving Wounds, by the way, which is a special website which we've referred to more than once, who have a wonderful ministry for adult children of divorce. The website is lifegivingwounds.org. But anyway, they're great suggestions because, you know, the way I look at it is this: the more ministries that are out there that are doing what we are doing, and some specialize in doing only one thing, like Life Giving Wounds and Joey Pontarelli's ministry, Restored Ministry, that's what they do, is adult children of divorce healing. St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, we have a bigger umbrella. So we say families in crisis. So we're trying to hit all these different areas and discuss them, because we know that a good family life means healing with all kinds of areas that touch our lives, right? This just happens to be one of them. But we definitely want to make our best effort to minister to you who are listening. May I ask all of you too to please share this podcast with people that you know. Share it with those who are going through tough times, especially an adult child of divorce. Now, you might think to yourself, and we've discussed this on other podcasts, that adult children of divorce you would think would be like between the ages of 18 to 24. I don't know about you, Mickey, but I think that the lessons and the family issues that we go through, they don't end at 24 many times. So we need to continue that healing. I mean, I'm in my late 50s now. I mean, and I still think, even at my age, I still think that there's a lot of room for healing and for growth. And Mickey, I think that you said on one of our other podcasts is that part of that healing is realizing that so much of it isn't our fault. I mean, actually 100% of it isn't our fault, you know? So, I mean, let's just talk about that before we end, just the importance of realizing, like, staying in our lane, that just because our parents got divorced, it doesn't mean that we need to get divorced from all the members of our family, right?
Well, and I think it's amazing that you mention it, because honestly, you know, just because we came from a very we come from a broken home, that does not mean that we should be scared, you know, to pursue a potential call to the married life. Granted, you know, I mean, let's face it. I mean, the dating world today is not that it's not, you know, butterflies and rainbows like it used to. And honestly, the culture is dictating like what dating is, what marriage is. In reality, they are neglecting, and of course, they are, you know, going against what God created. And one of the most important steps that we need to do today is, yes, you know, marriages are not 100% perfect. There will be struggles. There will be challenges that will arise among the couple. But if there's one thing that we have to look to is, number one, we have to make sure God is at the center of our marriage. We choose to have children over pets. Now, don't get me wrong. I am for having a dog or a cat, for sure. I mean, there's some things we can learn from them. But when you stand before God on your wedding day, you make a promise to bear fruit. And I'm not just saying apples and oranges, just don't ask me to compare those. But really, that promise is that you promise to bear children. Because that's the fruit of marriage, having children. And you don't say, oh, I'm just going to have one kid and we're done. That's not how it works. How it works is you let God take control. If he, some families, if they're fortunate, they can have at least 2 kids or 3, whatever the case is. But the end game for every marriage is for each the spouses to lead each other to heaven. We look in fact, there have been some clauses for canonization that opened up or has concluded, with the Père de Saint Therese. That's one perfect example. Another example is there's a family in Poland that recently had a clause for canonization that opened, and they were martyred by the Gestapo during World War II. The main crime was they were protecting Jews that were escaping the reign of Adolf Hitler, who wanted to try to exterminate the Jewish population over his ill-informed, ill-conscious effort, especially his prejudice, especially the fact that he was very prejudiced and he was a very vile and violent man. But I think what we have to understand is that we can't let our past hold us back from greatness.
Yeah, excellent advice. We can't let our past hold us back from greatness. That's a good one for all of us, whether we're adult children of divorce or not. Thank you, Mickey. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom on this podcast.
My pleasure.
So thank all of you for tuning in every month for this series. I think it's been a great series so far. Next month, I should say, is episode number 8. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please go to the Philly Nonnatus YouTube channel and subscribe. That way, every time a new one comes up, you'll get that notification. Although you could always go to our website, and the link is also there under podcasts. So be sure to connect with us at nonnatus.org and on social media. Thank you all so much, and we'll see all of you here next month with the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for freedom, family, and faith. God bless.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. For more information about the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, visit nonnatus.org or email director.srnf@gmail.com.
People who have faith in the shroud as the burial cloth of Christ, but don't understand or don't know the science, when they get to know it and learn it, have more respect for the cloth because of that. Science truly followed and faith well followed blend to form the truth, and the truth is on that cloth.
One possibility, of course, is that we have some unknown man who was scourged, crucified, stabbed with a lance, crowned with thorns, who spent less than 3 days within his burial shroud and bears his image in such a way that it cannot be recreated with all the technology that exists today. Or perhaps, just perhaps, it may be Jesus the Christ.
This is your salvation. This is love in action.